So this is going to be something of a different episode. In fact, I'm probably going to have to entitle it Not Ship Updates because, I'm still holding out a little hope that we're going to get a little bit of a surprise ship announcement to go along with the arrival of 3.6. But this week has, of course, been very, very thin on ship info, and there really isn't all that much more forthcoming, so I figured it's pretty safe right now to record this episode and get this out there. Because unfortunately, I've got some other things to do. I'm going to have a very busy weekend. But, my hopes weren't all that high for 3.6. I mean, there was some new stuff coming, but we really didn't get a lot of discussion in detail. And then we found out about this new hacking chip, not ship, chip, that we were supposedly going to be able to get, possibly at GrimHex, probably in Rudo's shop. And then they dropped some other info, and it was all gameplay related, but it got me really excited. So, of course, they dropped the idea of this hacking chip. And that got me really excited. And I started thinking about it. I was going like, oh, man, that would be a really great topic for the Piracy Show. And I could kind of bring in the Herald, and I could say, hey, why don't you, in the future, why don't you use this as a way, something to expand upon and maybe bring the Herald into this, would be nice. But I think I'll save that for, the Piracy Show. But there was one thing that they were talking about, and they were talking about the coordinate system. Now, for a long time, a lot of us have been going, a coordinate system would really help navigating the universe. But at the same time, I think a lot of us know the dangers of a coordinate system. And, Todd and Jared, they really kind of illustrated very well the dangers of a coordinate system, and they used the examples of Wowhead and Thoughtbot. And as a WoW player, I definitely recognize those dangers, and it kind of really put a very good point on it, which is if you have a publicly accessible information system, which of course will exist for any decent sized game, then you have the potential to spoil the adventure in the interests of being efficient, in the interests of doing things quickly. Most of us will refer to outside references, go here, do this, go here, do that, bring this thing, close out this quest, boom, you're done, you get your mount or you get your gun or whatever. And, in general, we default to this type of convenience. But at the same time, it does rob us, certainly, of that sense of discovery, which is such an intangible thing, but it's such an important thing in games like Star Citizen, in games that have large play areas and, that encourage exploration. So I fully agree with the developers on that. And if they don't end up implementing a flat out coordinate system, based on this point of view, I would agree with that. However, I feel that a bookmark system, like a bookmark system that is restricted to the player, but the player can opt to trade those bookmarks to other players, is something that I think should be in the game. Is something that we should see at some future date. Something that allows us to kind of say, hey, you know what? I'm going to tell you where you go to get that thing. You can come to me and I'll trade you that bookmark. Maybe because we're friends, I'll give it to you for free. Or maybe, I'm going to charge you for it. That sort of thing. Here's a great place to go get salvage. Here's a great place to go get iron or gold or whatever with your mining ship. Things like that. I think something like that, it encourages not so much going to an outside reference to kind of just glean what little information you need and then just be done with it and just so, oh well, that's it, easy, done. Now I know where to go. Now I know what to do. I don't really have to waste my time reading quest text or doing anything like that. I don't really have to get involved with the world. I can just kind of dip in, do what I want to do, get the thing that I want to get, and not really invest in it all that much, all for the sake of convenience. It's kind of doing things for convenience reasons obviously has its benefits in terms of personal time spent doing things, but it also has its detractors, and it can pull you away from immersion, which sometimes, even though it's the most expedient way to do things, it's for the player, it's not really the best, because it doesn't really invest you so much in what you're doing. It makes you a little too casual of a player. Now, obviously, we already see it in the Star Citizen community. There's plenty of websites, plenty of tools out there to help you fit out a ship, pick a ship, or just look up various information related to the game. Of course, it's very sparse right now because the game is nowhere near finished. And certainly a lot of the things that are in the game right now are not set in stone. But in the future, obviously, there is going to be a demand for this type of information. Certainly, it's not, it's not to be unexpected. But I think that if CIG is to hold back fully on an actual coordinate system, but if they are going to allow players to set personal bookmarks, locations for things like, oh, this is our rendezvous location, so I'm going to send this to everybody, or this is going to be where we keep our base, then I'm kind of okay with that. Obviously, from a criminal side of things, people say, oh yeah, well, that makes it so much easier for you to hide your little base. But from a legitimate player standpoint, that's also kind of a good thing too, because it allows you to maybe put certain infrastructure out there and not have it, just, by the way, here's a public, bookmark. Mark's base is over here. Todd's base is over here. So now everybody in the game knows where to find you. I think that that's kind of a good thing. If if locations, data on locations and whatnot have to be, captured on site by the players who are going to that location. Let's say, you go to an asteroid and you say, hey, this is a great place to either put down a base or create a rendezvous point, or to hide my Kraken at, and I'm just going to share this location with, certain discrete individuals. I would be entirely okay with a system like that. I think that, even as a WoW player, I do recognize that over the years, something definitely has been lost in that game. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why there's so much hype around WoW Classic, is because, a lot of people are kind of going back and hoping to kind of rediscover part of that magic, which I don't really think is there. In certain areas I do, obviously going back to more complicated classes, much more spells in the spell book and all that sort of stuff is there for them. But I think that the idea of going back to that age of discovery, I don't think that you can really ever go back to that. You can only discover it once, So I think that kind of by holding back on a coordinate system, like a public coordinate system, everybody knows where this is, everybody knows where that is. And once one person's found Jumptown, you can just go and go, oh, it's X this, Z this, and Y this, and just put that into your ship's flight computer and it just takes you right to it. I think if we don't end up having something like that, it would probably end up being a good thing. I think that the idea of having to go out and find these locations, through trial and error and, just good old fashioned grinding away, looking for things, is a good thing. But once you find it, I think you should be able to bookmark it. But yeah, that is, it's one of those things that, of course, the criminal stuff we're going to talk about in the piracy show, but that was one of the things that when I was watching that, the interview with Todd Pappy and Jared, I was one of those moments where, even though I do disagree with the developers on certain things within the game, this is one place where I am in full agreement with them. And I think that they're absolutely 100% correct. But, as for all this other stuff, we'll talk about it over the next week. And so long as it works, 3.6 is looking pretty good now. I'm a little bit more excited about 3.6. And now, sadly for Chris, we go back to playing the old game.
Are we there yet?
No.
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 Are we there yet?
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.